Hi, my name is Jerry Sunarine, and today we're going to be looking at how can I convert measurements. Before we get into today's lesson, there are two main strategies we want students to understand. One is GCF, and the other is actually converting between different measurements. First, I'm going to go over GCF. GCF, we want them to understand that means greatest common factor, and we can provide them a definition. The greatest number that is a factor of two or more other numbers. So when we're looking at greatest common factor for this lesson and for purposes, we're going to only look at two numbers to find the greatest common factor. We can show them some visuals in helping them get to the process. The first visual, the 16 and 24, it's less structured. So here we just identified 8 as the greatest common factor. We can have students identify that 8 is the largest number and disregard the 1, the 2, and the 4. For students that might need extra support, we can actually show more explicitly the factors of 24 and the factors of 36. Here, we actually circle all the numbers that are common, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 6, and the 12. And there's a written explanation. Common factors are circled in orange. The greatest common factor is 12, where we explicitly state that. Now we're going to get into, before we get into the lesson, we're going to just go over how to convert between different measurements. So what I provided was some guidance and some visuals that go along with the steps. So let's say if we're looking at 24 inches equals how many yards, we want to convert into the same measurement. So our answer, in order to do that, we want students to practice that 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. We want students to recognize the different measurements and have them explicitly write it out. So when we have 1 yard equals 36 inches, we can have them write out 1 yard over 36 inches. For the second step, we want them to multiply across. So we want them to turn 24 into a fraction by putting it 24 over 1, and the fraction we developed, 1 over 36, 1 over 36. This is especially important, especially when we're trying to cancel out units in future lessons in math and even in science. When we do this, 24 times 1, we multiply across, and 1 times 36, we multiply across. We have 24 over 36. The last step is to simplify the fraction, so find the GCF. So here on the side, we can have students practice finding what the GCF is. We have 24 and 36. I find it very helpful that if you write out what times what gives you 24, it's very easy for students to visually see and practice their mental math abilities. For this video purposes, I've just highlighted 12 so that just it's easier to identify the GCF. Now you can highlight all the numbers and have students pick out which is the largest number. It's up to you. So here is the last step is 24 over 36. The GCF is 12, so we're dividing the top and bottom by the same number. And I find it easier if we actually write 12 on the top, 12 on the bottom, so then it's 24 divided by 12 is 2, and 36 divided by 12 is 3. Giving us our final answer, 24 inches is equal to 2/3 of a yard. We're going to look at some examples where we can use the same strategy and for students to see the procedure as well as the visuals. So the first example we're going to look at is 30 centimeters equals how many meters. So for this, we can have students pause the video and have them experiment with this. And we can provide students with the guidance and see if they can do this on their own with the guidance. And then we try to pull away the support so that they can be more independent. Here's just an example of how we can work through this problem. Same as before, we go through and we have an arrow showing you each of the steps. F is 10, and we divide the top and bottom number, the numerator and the denominator, by 10, giving us 3/10. 30 centimeters is equal to 3/10 of a meter. We're going to look at another example. So we can have students practice inches and foot. 9 inches is equal to how many feet or foot? And here's another example that demonstrates this. It's very important for students to understand the different conversions. We want them to recognize it automatically. So 1 foot equals 12 inches, and we have students work through the problem, practicing the GCF. So in both numbers, 3 is your GCF, and when we divide it, we get 3/4. 9 inches equals 3/4 of a foot. Okay, we're going to look at another problem. And this problem's very unique because it adds an extra element to it, because our answer we will need to convert it from an improper fraction to a mixed number. But still using the same GCF principles will help us with this process. Here, again, we're converting. We want students to recognize that 1 pound equals 16 ounces. We go through the same process. We write our fraction, 1 pound over 16 ounces. We multiply across. And then here, when we're finding our GCF of 24 and 16, we identify that 8 is the GCF. And here we want to turn improper fraction to a proper fraction. So when we're dividing out the 8, our answer we will get is 3/2. However, we can't leave that as a fraction, as an improper fraction. We wanted to convert it into a mixed number, and we can allow students to practice this. 2 goes into 3 one time, and we have 1/2 left over, giving us our answer 24 ounces is equal to 1/2 pounds. We're going to go through one more example, and this one is a math word problem. So koalas will often sleep for 20 hours a day. For what fraction of the day does a koala often sleep? So we want students to encourage them to read the problem, circle important information, and usually it's numbers, units, or anything relating to math. And from there, we can identify what's the key information in order to move forward. So when we're looking at this problem, we want students to recognize that 1 day equals 24 hours. Here we see days, we see hours, so those are the two we need to convert in between. So 1 day is equal to 24 hours, we write that as a fraction. We're going to multiply across 20/24. And then the last thing we'll do is we're going to divide. We're going to find our GCF, which is 4. And we're going to divide the top and bottom number by 4, giving us 5/6. So 20 hours equals 5/6 of a day. Last but not least, we're going to do our summarization. So we want students to identify how can I convert measurements? Going through the process, we have some 3 steps. Convert into the same measurement or units. Then we want them to multiply across. Then we want finally to simplify the fraction by finding the GCF. So within this lesson, we have students working through and practicing other mathematical skills that will help them in the future lessons and in other subjects as well. And lastly, here's a visual that we can use for students to help them guide from one step to another to finally get to their final answer. Hopefully this was helpful in preparing for our students. Have a great day.